The global standoff between the United States and Russia has taken another perilous turn, as the Trump administration has now drawn a clear and unmistakable military red line in the Ukrainian conflict. In a stern and globally televised press conference from the Pentagon, Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth announced that the United States will launch direct military strikes using Tomahawk cruise missiles against Russian targets if the Kremlin crosses a newly defined threshold of aggression. This dramatic declaration adds a layer of immediate military threat on top of the administration's ongoing 50-day economic ultimatum, creating a dual crisis that puts the world on high alert for either an economic collapse or a superpower military exchange. The policy of strategic ambiguity is over. Washington has now explicitly stated conditions under which it will join the fight. Speaking from the Pentagon's briefing room, Secretary Hegseth laid out the American position with stark clarity. He explained that while the 100% tariff plan is designed to dismantle Russia's war economy over time, the United States will not stand by if Russia engage in certain catastrophic escalations in the immediate future. Let me be perfectly clear, so there is no room for miscalculation in Moscow, Secretary Hegseth said, pointing to a map of Ukraine behind him. President Trump has authorized the use of decisive military force under two specific conditions. First, any use of chemical, biological, or tactical nuclear weapon by the Russian Federation on Ukraine's soil. Second, any widespread and deliberate strategic bombing campaign against the civilian populations of major Ukrainian cities west of the Dnieper River. He concluded, should Russia cross this red line, the United States will respond. Our response will be precise, it will be overwhelming, and it will be delivered by Tomahawk cruise missiles. The Tomahawk missile is a critical element of this new threat. It is a long-range, highly accurate, conventionally armed cruise missile that can be launched from U.S. Navy warship and submarine operating in international waters. The choice of this specific weapon is deliberate. It allows the United States to strike targets deep within Russia without risking American pilots, a key factor in managing domestic political concerns about casualties. While Secretary Hegseth did not specify the exact targets, he strongly implied that strikes would be aimed at the very military assets, airbase, command bunkers, and naval facilities that Russia would use to carry out a red line attack. The message was unmistakable. If Russia launched a strategic assault on Ukraine, the United States will destroy the source of that assault. This new policy was forged in the crucible of intense White House debate, revealing the ongoing tensions within President Trump's national security team. Secretary Hegseth, a firm advocate for military strength, had argued that the 50-day economic ultimatum, while powerful, was too slow to address the immediate danger on the battlefield. He contended that after the fall of Pokrovsk, the Russian military might feel emboldened to attempt a knockout blow against Kyiv or other major cities. In his view, a clear and credible military deterrent was needed immediately to prevent such scenario. He successfully persuaded the president that drawing a red line was not an act of provocation, but a necessary step to prevent a wider war by establishing clear boundaries for Russian action. This position was met with profound concern from the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. In classified briefings, she warned President Trump that drawing such a specific red line strips the United States of all flexibility. She argued that it effectively gives the power to start a U.S.-Russia war to the Russian president. If Moscow decides to test the American resolve, the president will be trapped, forced to either act on the threat and risk a massive escalation, or back down and suffer a catastrophic loss of global credibility. Director Gabbard also highlighted the immense pressure this new policy places on the intelligence community. The responsibility of determining whether a chemical agent was truly used or whether a bombing campaign meets the deliberately vague criteria of widespread and strategic would fall on her agencies. A single piece of faulty intelligence or a misinterpreted signal could trigger a direct military exchange between two nuclear powers. The director of the Central Intelligence Agency, John Radcliffe, echoed these concerns, noting that his agency would be on the front line of collecting and verifying this information under an almost unbearable time pressure. The diplomatic fallout has been immediate, requiring Secretary of State Marco Rubio to engage in another frantic round of damage control and reassurance with allies. The new military red line was received with deep alarm in many European capitals. The massive NATO arms deal led by Secretary General Mark Rutte was intended in part to demonstrate European commitment and de-escalate the immediate tension with Washington. Now, allies like Germany and France feel that the United States has unilaterally moved the goalposts back toward military conflict. They fear that a disputed incident in a Ukrainian city could trigger American missile strikes, which could in turn lead to Russian retaliation against the NATO bases on their soil, where the newly purchased American weapons are slated to be deployed. Secretary Rubio has been working to frame the red line as a purely defensive measure designed to protect the Ukrainian state from annihilation and prevent a massive refugee crisis that would destabilize all of Europe. He is emphasizing the conditional if-then nature of the threat to assuage ally fears. In stark contrast, the nations on NATO's eastern flank have quietly welcomed the American announcement. Countries like Poland and the Baltic states see the red lines as a necessary and long overdue steps. From their perspective, the only language the Kremlin understands is strength, and the explicit threat of American Tomahawks is the most powerful deterrent possible. They believe this clarity will do more to prevent a Russian escalation than any amount of diplomatic ambiguity. In Kyiv, the Ukrainian government has publicly praised the American decision. President Volodymyr Zelensky released a statement thanking President Trump for his resolute and clear stance. For Ukraine, the U.S. red line represents a partial security guarantee, a protective shield against the most devastating form of Russian attack. It provides a significant morale boost to both the Ukrainian military and the civilian population, who now feel they are not entirely alone. However, this relief is tempered by the terrifying realization that their country is now officially the trigger point for potential global conflict. Moscow's reaction was one of pure fury. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs denounced the American red line as a cynical and dangerous ultimatum from a nation that believed it can police the world. A high-ranking official in the Russian military went on state television to issue a direct counter threat, stating that any Tomahawk missile striking sovereign Russian territory would be considered an act of total war. He warned that Russia's response would not be limited or proportional, but would be immediate and aimed at the decision-making centers of our adversary. This has effectively created a frightening new standoff. The American Tomahawk's red line is now countered by a Russian red line against any strikes on its soil. The establishment of this Tomahawk red lines had fundamentally altered the nature of the crisis. The world is no longer just watching the 50-day economic clock. It is now also watching the skies over Ukraine. Every artillery barrage, every air raid sirens in a major city will be scrutinized by the world's intelligence agencies, media, and public, all asking the same terrifying question. Has the red line been crossed? The Trump administration has put its credibility on the line with a specific public military threat. It is a high-stake gamble, betting that the threat of American cruise missiles will be enough to deter the Kremlin. The policy has been celebrated by some as a bold act of deterrence and condemned by others as a reckless march toward war. For now, the world holds its breath. caught between an economic deadline and a military tripwire, waiting to see if Russia will test the Tomahawk red line. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel. And so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed. And that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to So Kane Rich, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first one's on me. But if you have watched the show before, like you are freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build this show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.